The unexpected discovery. It was a quiet, cold morning aboard the space station Argo. The stars twinkled outside the windows, distant and untouchable. The crew was going through their regular routines, checking systems and ensuring everything was functioning as it should. But no one expected that day to be different. No one expected their lives to change forever. Lieutenant Carter, the head of the exploration team, had just finished her morning briefing when the call came in. The signal was faint, barely detectable, but the station's radar had picked up something. A small, unidentified object was approaching the planet they were stationed on, Terra 9. The object was heading directly for a remote, uninhabited region of the planet's surface. At first, they thought it might be a meteorite, but something about the way it moved caught their attention. It wasn't just falling, it was controlled. "Lieutenant, we're detecting unusual activity near the object's crash site," said Commander Bell, his voice calm but tense. He stared at his screen as data poured in, his fingers moving swiftly across the keys. Carter furrowed her brow. "Prepare a team. We're going down there. I want answers." A few hours later, Carter, Commander Bell, and a small team of scientists and soldiers were on their way to the crash site. The journey was short, and the landing was smooth. As they exited the ship, the harsh winds of Terra 9 greeted them, biting at their faces. The landscape was barren, with rocky outcrops and dust swirling in the air. "Stay alert," Carter instructed. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." They made their way through the rocky terrain, following the coordinates provided by the station's scanners. The ground beneath them was littered with charred pieces of rock and strange debris. The closer they got to the crash site, the more eerie the surroundings felt. Finally, after what felt like hours of trudging through the rough landscape, they reached it. The crash site was unlike anything they had ever seen. It wasn't a meteorite. The object that had fallen was made of metal. But it wasn't any metal they recognized. It was smooth, almost shiny, and covered in strange symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint glow. Carter motioned for the team to stop. "Is this what I think it is?" she whispered, her voice tinged with awe. Bell stepped forward cautiously. "It looks like an alien craft, but we need to be careful. We don't know if it's safe." The team moved around the wreckage, examining the alien ship. It was small, but its design was clearly not of human origin. The exterior was sleek, with intricate patterns and glowing panels that suggested advanced technology. There was no sign of an explosion or fire, just a perfectly intact ship that had crash-landed on the planet. Carter's heart raced as she tried to make sense of what they had found. "This is big," she muttered. "This could change everything. The first proof of intelligent alien life. But where is the pilot?" Her words hung in the air as the team continued to search. It wasn't until they reached the far side of the craft that they found something that made their blood run cold. A small hatch, barely visible, was slightly ajar. Carter knelt down and pressed a button on the side. The hatch slowly opened with a soft hiss, revealing the interior. Inside, they found the alien girl. She was lying motionless on a metallic table, her body covered in strange, shimmering skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, with long, silver hair and wide, deep-set eyes that seemed to hold a universe of mystery. The crew stood frozen, unsure of what to make of the figure before them. "She's alive," Bell murmured, his voice barely a whisper. But Carter wasn't so sure. "She doesn't look alive. She looks like she's been dead for a long time." They carefully examined her body, noting the lack of any visible wounds or signs of trauma. Her skin was cold to the touch, but there was something odd about it, something that felt almost alive. It was as if her body was in some kind of suspended state, frozen in time. Carter's mind raced. Could this alien girl have been in some kind of stasis? Had she been on this ship for centuries, waiting for someone to find her? The questions piled up, but there were no easy answers. "We need to get her back to the station," Carter said firmly. "We have to find out who, what, She is. Bring her back with us. We might not get another chance like this." The team carefully lifted the alien girl onto a stretcher, their movements slow and cautious. They secured her aboard their transport ship, and within minutes, they were heading back to the Argo. As they lifted off the ground, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The girl seemed so lifeless, yet there was something about her presence that sent chills down her spine. It was as if she was more than just a passenger on this journey. She was the key to something much larger. And deep down, Carter had a sinking feeling that the truth of what they had found would soon become much darker than they could ever imagine. A grave decision. The Argo hummed softly as it made its way back to the space station, carrying the mysterious alien girl in a medical pod. The crew was silent, each member lost in their thoughts. Their minds were racing, trying to comprehend what they had just encountered. The ship's interior felt unusually cold, as if the very walls sensed the weight of what they were carrying. Lieutenant Carter stood by the large observation window in the command center, staring out at the stars. Her fingers drummed nervously on the edge of the table, her mind spinning with questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? The alien girl had no signs of life. At least, none that the crew could recognize. She looked like she had been frozen, waiting for someone to find her. But what was her purpose? And why had she come to Terra 9? "Lieutenant." Commander Bell's voice broke through her thoughts. He stepped into the room, his expression tense. "We need to talk about what comes next." Carter turned to face him, her eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" "She's in a coma. We don't even know if she's truly alive." Bell sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know, but we have to decide what to do with her. The station's medical team is ready to run tests, but there's something about this whole situation that doesn't sit right with me." "I agree," Carter replied, crossing her arms. "We're venturing into unknown territory here. But if we don't try to understand her, we could miss the opportunity of a lifetime. This is first contact with an alien species. We can't just ignore that." "But at what cost?" Bell's voice hardened. "What if she's dangerous? What if we're bringing something onto the station that we can't control?" The tension in the room thickened. The risk was real. No one knew if the alien girl was a threat or if she had some unknown power. The idea of studying her for scientific purposes was tempting, but Bell was right. There was no guarantee that she wouldn't turn against them. Just then, Dr. Isabella Hayes, the lead scientist on the Argo, entered the room. She was holding a tablet, and her eyes were wide with urgency. "Lieutenant, Commander, we've received an encrypted transmission. It's from a military outpost on Terra 9. They've detected something else. Something strange." "Another alien ship?" Carter asked, her heart pounding. Hayes shook her head. "No, a signal. It's familiar, almost as if it's been calling to her." Carter frowned. "Calling to her? You mean it's related to the alien girl?" "We think so. The signal is being emitted from the coordinates of her crash site. But it's not just a distress signal. It's something else, a signal meant specifically for her." Hayes' voice was filled with concern. "We don't know who or what is sending it, but I think we need to be cautious." Bell's eyes narrowed. "So now we have an alien girl, a mysterious signal, and no answers. What are we supposed to do with all this?" Carter took a deep breath. She knew the stakes were higher than ever. "We need to bring her to the station's lab, run tests, and see if we can find out what that signal means. But we'll need to keep her under strict observation. Until we know more, we can't take any risks." The decision was made. The team prepared for what would surely be a long and dangerous investigation. The alien girl was transferred to the medical bay, where she was placed in a secure room. Dr. Hayes was assigned to study her, along with a team of specialists. They hooked her up to monitors, running scans to learn everything they could. As the hours passed, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they were making a terrible mistake. The girl might be just an innocent being, or she might be something far more dangerous. No one knew, but one thing was certain. The truth was out there, and it would reveal itself in time. The next day, Carter and Bell were called to the lab. Dr. Hayes stood by a large console, her face pale and tense. "Lieutenant, Commander, you need to see this." On the monitor, they saw the alien girl still lying motionless. But her body was connected to several different machines, and the readouts on the monitors were unlike anything they'd ever seen. Her heart rate was stable, but there was something strange about her brain activity. It didn't make sense. "This doesn't add up," Hayes said, tapping the screen. "Her brain waves are active, but in a pattern I'd never encountered before. It's almost as if she's aware of everything around her, but her body isn't responding." Bell stepped closer, his face full of concern. "So, she's conscious?" Hayes nodded slowly. "It seems that way. But her body is still in a state of hibernation. I don't know how that's possible, or why her brainwaves are so complex. They're not like anything we've seen before." Carter's mind was racing. This was beyond anything they could have expected. The alien girl wasn't just a mystery, she was something more. A question echoed in her mind. What was she waiting for? Suddenly, the room's lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air. The monitors began to beep erratically. The alien girl's body twitched, her fingers moving just slightly. It was subtle, but enough to send a ripple of fear through the room. "Get back," Carter ordered sharply. "What's happening?" "I don't know," Hayes replied, her voice trembling. "It's like she's reacting to something, or someone." Carter's gut twisted. The situation was rapidly spinning out of control. Whatever this alien girl was, she wasn't just a passive being. She had a purpose. And now, it seemed, that purpose was starting to awaken. The awakening. The low hum in the medical bay grew louder, vibrating through the floor and walls. The lights flickered again, and the beeping of the monitors escalated into a frantic rhythm. Lieutenant Carter's pulse quickened as she stared at the alien girl on the table. Her fingers twitched, then moved again, this time more purposefully. Is she waking up?" Commander Bell asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Hayes, who had been frantically trying to stabilize the medical readings, looked up with wide, alarmed eyes. "I don't know. This isn't like anything I've seen before. Her brain activity is spiking, but her body, it's still not responding in the usual way." Carter's mind raced. Was this some sort of defensive mechanism? A last-ditch attempt to stay alive? She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The alien girl's eyes flickered open, just a sliver at first, then wider, as if she were slowly regaining awareness of her surroundings. Her eyes were a deep, luminous violet, unlike anything Carter had ever seen. They glowed faintly in the low light, as though they held secrets far older than anything on Earth. For a brief moment, Carter thought she saw fear in those eyes. But then, the girl's gaze locked onto her, and just as quickly, the fear vanished, replaced by a chilling calmness. The girl's mouth moved, but no sound came out. She tried again, this time with more force, her lips parting slightly as if to speak. Still, nothing. "She's trying to communicate," Hayes murmured, leaning in closer. "But the vocal cords, they aren't built for speech like ours." The alien girl's hand twitched, lifting slowly from the table, fingers stretching out as if reaching for something. The room held its breath. Carter took a cautious step forward, her instincts telling her to stay alert. "Don't get too close," Bell warned, his voice low. "We don't know what she's capable of yet." But it was too late. The girl's eyes flashed, and before anyone could react, a surge of energy pulsed from her body, sending a wave of static through the room. The lights dimmed and flickered violently, and the monitors went haywire, displaying erratic patterns. Carter staggered back, shielding her face from the sudden shockwave. "What the hell was that?" Bell demanded, his voice tense. Dr. Hayes scrambled to stabilize the equipment, trying to regain control. "It's some sort of electromagnetic pulse. She's generating it somehow. It's like she's manipulating the technology around her. Carter's heart raced. The girl's power was undeniable. She hadn't just woken up. She had taken control of the station's systems, if only for a brief moment. The girl's eyes narrowed, and Carter could have sworn she saw a flicker of recognition in them. It was as though the girl was aware of their every move, calculating her next steps. The tension in the room was palpable. "We need to get her back under control," Hayes said urgently. "If she can do this, we're in serious danger." Before Carter could respond, the alien girl's hand dropped to the table, and the energy pulse ceased as suddenly as it had begun. The room returned to its normal state, the lights steady and the equipment humming once more. But the silence that followed felt even heavier than before. Carter stared at the alien girl, who lay motionless once more, her eyes closed. She didn't appear to be in distress, but there was no mistaking the power she held. "She's not human," Carter muttered, almost to herself. "She's something else, something dangerous." Bell glanced at the monitors again. "I don't think it's that simple. We don't know what she's capable of. But we need to be cautious. What if she's trying to send a message? What if she's waiting for something?" The idea hung in the air, an unsettling possibility that no one wanted to confront. What if the alien girl wasn't just an innocent being or a threat? What if she was here with a purpose, something larger than the crew could imagine? Carter felt a pang of uncertainty deep in her gut. We need to be careful, but we can't ignore the fact that this could be humanity's first real contact with an alien race. We can't let fear control our actions. We need to understand her before it's too late. The crew fell into a tense silence as they watched the alien girl. She lay there, peaceful once again, but there was no mistaking the storm of possibilities swirling around her. Carter knew they had just begun to scratch the surface of something far beyond their understanding. Hours passed as the medical team continued their work, but no one could shake the feeling that they were walking a thin line. The alien girl remained in the same state, awake but silent, her body lying still as if in some form of stasis. Her movements were minimal, but Carter could still sense that she was fully aware of everything around her. In the early hours of the next day, Carter was called back to the medical bay. As she entered, she noticed the tense atmosphere immediately. Hayes and Bell were both standing over the alien girl, their faces grim. "What's going on?" Carter asked, her voice sharp. "We found something," Bell said. "Another signal. It's coming from her." Hayes nodded slowly. "We've been running scans, trying to learn more about her physiology. And the data is strange. Her body is emitting a low-frequency signal. It's almost like it's in sync with the station's systems." "A signal," Carter repeated, confusion written across her face. "But why would she?" "Listen," Hayes cut in, pointing to a monitor. The screen displayed the frequency data, showing the signal emanating from the alien girl's body. But there was something else. The signal wasn't just random noise. It was structured. It was almost intentional. And then Carter realized. The girl wasn't just waiting for something. She was calling out. And it wasn't just the crew who was listening. The signal was growing stronger. And Carter knew, deep in her bones, that they were no longer alone. The aliens' powers. The hum of the space station Argo was almost soothing in the aftermath of the alien girl's mysterious display of power. Yet, for Lieutenant Carter, the tension in the air felt palpable, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. No one dared to speak, and the silence stretched far longer than it should have. They had all witnessed something they could barely comprehend. The alien girl's sudden surge of energy, the power she had displayed, and the strange signal she was emitting. And now, it seemed as though they were all waiting for the next unexpected event. Carter paced back and forth in the medical bay, her mind racing with the possibilities. What was she? The girl was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Every new piece of information only added more layers of mystery to the puzzle. Carter wasn't sure if they were dealing with a weapon, an envoy, or something entirely different. But what troubled her most was the sense that they weren't the only ones aware of the girl's presence. "Lieutenant," Hayes called, pulling Carter from her thoughts. "You should see this." Carter walked over to where Hayes and Commander Bell stood, their eyes fixed on the monitor displaying data on the alien girl. It was another scan, this one focused on her brainwaves. The patterns were even more complex than before, now pulsing in synchronization with the signal they had detected earlier. But there was something else, something unsettling. This isn't just a response to the station's systems," Hayes said, her voice filled with awe and fear. "It's almost like she's communicating with the station itself, like she's pulling at the energy here." Bell raised an eyebrow, leaning in closer. "So you're saying she's manipulating the station's systems with her mind?" "It's not just manipulation," Hayes said, shaking her head. "It's more like she's controlling them. The systems are responding to her on a level that we don't fully understand. It's as though she's tuning into the station's energy, using it to communicate or activate things at will." Carter's heart skipped a beat. Tuning into the station's energy. What did that even mean? It sounded too advanced, too dangerous. They were dealing with a being who wasn't just a passenger on the station. They were dealing with someone who seemed to command it. Suddenly, the lights in the medical bay flickered again, and the monitors began to buzz. Carter's gut twisted. "What's happening?" "It's her," Hayes said, her eyes wide with a mix of fascination and fear. "She's doing something. The energy is spiking again." Before they could react, the girl's eyes opened wide once more, the same violet glow shining through them. She didn't move, not at first. But then, the room's temperature began to drop rapidly. A chill crept through the air, and the sound of crackling electricity filled the space. It was as if the very atmosphere was changing in response to the alien girl's will. "What is this?" Bell asked, his voice tight with apprehension. Carter felt a wave of cold rush over her skin, and for a split second, she thought she saw a flicker of something in the girl's eyes. Something more than just awareness. It was as though the girl could sense the crew's thoughts, could feel their fear. Then, without warning, the room's power flickered again, and every device, every piece of equipment in the room, shut down, plunging them into darkness. In the pitch black, they heard a soft, almost melodic hum. It wasn't coming from any of the station's equipment. It came from the alien girl. Her voice, Carter whispered, stepping closer. The hum seemed to resonate from deep within the girl's chest, a low, pulsing vibration that felt alive. The hum was like a song, strange and haunting, but there was a definite rhythm to it. It felt like a message. It felt like a warning. "Do you hear it?" Hayes asked, her voice shaky. "It's like she's singing, or communicating in a way we can't understand." The girl's eyes flickered again, her gaze unwavering, and the temperature of the room began to normalize. The power returned, but now, the monitors displayed strange new data. The alien girl's brainwaves had shifted again, this time in a pattern that resembled language, but not any language they knew. The symbols were foreign, like an entirely different form of communication. "She's trying to talk to us," Bell said quietly, his voice tinged with awe. "But it's not through sound. It's something deeper." The girl's hand twitched again, and this time, it wasn't a random movement. She lifted her fingers toward the console, and the lights in the room flickered in response, pulsing with the same rhythm as the humming sound. It was as if her presence was influencing the very flow of energy in the station. Carter's mind raced. Could she really be controlling the station's power? Could she be sending a message in a way no one had ever imagined before? The girl wasn't speaking in words. She wasn't using physical gestures to communicate. She was speaking directly to the station itself, using energy and waves as her form of expression. But what was she saying? Before anyone could voice their thoughts, another surge of energy burst forth from the girl's body. This time, it wasn't just the lights that responded. The entire station seemed to hum, vibrating with a strange resonance. It was as though the girl was calling out to something beyond the station, something that was listening. Carter's heart pounded. The alien girl wasn't just some passive creature they had found. She was a conduit of power. She had the ability to bend energy to her will, and whatever she was doing now, it was only the beginning. And just as quickly as the surge had started, it stopped. The room fell silent once more. The monitors returned to normal, and the humming sound ceased. But the tension in the air lingered, thick and heavy. "She's connected to something," Hayes said softly, her voice filled with wonder and fear. "And I think we've only just begun to understand how much power she truly holds." Carter nodded, her mind filled with dread and anticipation. The alien girl was more than just a being from another world. She was something far more dangerous, something that could control not just the station's systems, but perhaps the very fabric of energy itself. And whatever message she was trying to send, it was clear that they were on the edge of discovering something far bigger than they had ever imagined. The feeling of being watched returned, stronger than before. Carter couldn't shake the sense that they weren't alone. Whoever, or whatever, had sent the alien girl was still out there, and they were waiting. The next phase of their journey had only just begun. The first attack. It had been 3 days since the alien girl first awakened aboard the Argo. The crew had done their best to continue their work, but the constant tension in the air made every task feel impossible. The alien girl was still in the medical bay, under close observation, but no one could shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Carter couldn't focus. Each time she entered the medical bay to check on the alien girl, it was as if the girl's gaze was following her, watching her every move, calculating, waiting. The power she had shown the day before still lingered in the back of Carter's mind. The alien girl wasn't just an innocent being from another world. She was something else, something that seemed to hold the fate of the Argo in her hands. "We've got a problem." Bell's voice cut through her thoughts as she stood in the command center, looking out into the endless expanse of space. He appeared in the doorway, his face grim. "You need to see this." Carter turned to face him, her heart already beginning to race. "What's going on?" Bell handed her a tablet. The screen was filled with flashing red warnings. "We're picking up disturbances in the station's power grid. The systems are failing, shutting down one by one." Carter's breath caught. "Is it the alien girl? Is she causing this again?" "We don't know," Bell replied. "But it's happening all over the station. We can't pinpoint the source." Carter didn't hesitate. "Get to the medical bay. We need to make sure she's not trying to escape or do something worse." They moved quickly, the urgency building with every step. As they arrived at the medical bay, they found the door slightly ajar, the lights flickering ominously. Carter stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room. The alien girl was still lying on the medical bed, her body perfectly still, but the monitors that had once been tracking her were now glitching. The air felt thick, charged with an unseen energy, like static electricity clinging to every surface. "What the hell is happening?" Carter muttered under her breath, her eyes narrowing. "She's not moving. She's not doing anything." Bell moved closer to the console, checking the readouts. "I don't think she's the one causing it. The power fluctuations are too widespread. It's like something else is affecting the whole station." Before Carter could respond, the girl's eyes snapped open. The glowing violet light filled the room once again. And this time, there was no calmness. There was no recognition. The girl's pupils were wide and wild, as if she had no control over what was happening. "Get back," Bell shouted, stepping in front of Carter. But it was already too late. The alien girl's body jerked, her hands rising into the air as if she were reaching for something. A violent surge of energy shot through the room, making the lights flicker and the equipment scream in protest. The air grew colder again, and an almost unbearable pressure pressed against the crew. The girl's power wasn't just a wave, it was a full-force attack. The medical bay doors slammed shut with a deafening bang, locking them inside. Carter could feel her heart pounding in her chest as the air became thick with static. The hum from the girl's chest was louder now, vibrating through the walls. the floor, and the ceiling. Her hands crackled with blue energy, lightning-like pulses dancing from her fingertips. "She's not controlling it," Hayes shouted from the back of the room, her voice frantic. "It's like she's losing control of her abilities." A powerful shockwave emanated from the girl, throwing Carter and Bell backward. The force of the blast knocked them off their feet, sending them crashing into the walls. The lights in the room went out completely, plunging them into darkness once again. The only thing that remained was the sound of the alien girl's humming, growing louder, more intense. The energy she was releasing was erratic and uncontrolled, threatening to tear apart everything around them. The air crackled with an unseen force, as if the girl was siphoning the station's power and amplifying it within herself. Carter struggled to get to her feet, her vision blurry from the impact. "We have to stop her," she shouted, her voice hoarse. Bell was already scrambling to his feet. "It's not her. She's fighting this, but something else is controlling her. Someone is controlling her." Carter's stomach twisted in fear. Who or what could control this girl? She was powerful, too powerful to be manipulated by any human force, but there was no time to question it. The station's systems were failing, and it wouldn't be long before they lost everything. "We need to shut her down," Hayes yelled, grabbing a nearby console. "If we don't stop her now, the entire station will be fried. We have no choice." "Wait," Bell called, his voice full of urgency. "Look." Carter followed his gaze, and what she saw froze her in her tracks. The alien girl was trembling, her entire body shaking violently. The power she had been unleashing was starting to reverse, as though it was being pulled from her. Her eyes flickered with a mix of terror and desperation, and for the first time since they'd found her, she looked human. "She's not trying to attack us," Carter whispered. "She's being forced to do this." But by whom? The girl's hands began to fall, her body slumping forward as if drained of all strength. The humming sound died down, and the energy that had once filled the room slowly dissipated. The oppressive force vanished, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. "Doctor, what happened?" Carter asked, stepping closer to the alien girl. She was still unconscious, but her breathing was steady, her body now completely still. "I don't know," Hayes said, her voice full of confusion. The power surge stopped, but she's not herself. It's like something was controlling her, but it's gone now. Carter stared at the girl. Whoever had been controlling her was no longer here, but that didn't mean they were out of danger. If someone, or something, had used the alien girl as a weapon, then they were still out there, watching, waiting for their next move. And Carter had a sinking feeling that this was just the beginning. The truth revealed. The medical bay was silent, save for the soft hum of the station's emergency systems. The alien girl lay motionless on the table, her breathing shallow and steady. The room felt heavier than ever, the air thick with unanswered questions. Carter and the rest of the crew stood huddled together, their faces grim as they tried to make sense of the chaos that had just unfolded. What the hell just happened? Bell's voice was tense, his hands still shaking from the adrenaline of the attack. That wasn't just some random outburst. She was being controlled, manipulated. Carter stood in front of the alien girl, her gaze fixed on the fragile creature. Despite the havoc she had caused, the girl didn't seem like a monster. Her face was peaceful now, almost serene. The purple glow that had filled her eyes earlier had faded, leaving them closed in exhaustion. "Someone's behind this," Hayes said, breaking the silence. "And I think it's more than just an accident. That attack was calculated. Whoever or whatever is controlling her, they want something." Carter turned toward her. "But why? What's their end game? Why use her?" "I don't know," Hayes admitted, her voice strained. "But there's something we need to look into. I've been running diagnostics on the alien girl's physiology, and there's a pattern emerging. Her brainwaves, they are connected to something. A signal, a pull. It's not coming from here. It's coming from somewhere far away. The word signal sent a shiver down Carter's spine. She couldn't ignore the growing feeling that the alien girl wasn't just part of a grander scheme. She was the key. But to what? And who was pulling the strings? "We need to find out what that signal is," Carter said, a sense of urgency creeping into her voice. "Where is it coming from?" "Not where," Bell said, his brow furrowed. "Who?" The crew worked tirelessly for the next several hours, poring over every piece of data they had collected. Dr. Hayes ran endless scans on the alien girl, searching for any hidden clues, while Carter and Bell combed through the station's communication logs, trying to trace the origin of the mysterious signal. At first, the signal seemed to be nothing more than random electromagnetic interference, but the more they analyzed it, the clearer it became. The signal was deliberate. It was a message, a call. And it wasn't just aimed at the alien girl. It was aimed at the Argo. After hours of decoding the data, Bell's face turned pale. "You have to see this." Carter rushed over to his console, her heart racing. Bell had uncovered something shocking. The signal wasn't coming from Terra 9. It was coming from deep within space, far beyond their known reach, from a point near the outer rim of the galaxy. This can't be right," Carter whispered, her eyes scanning the coordinates. "Who would be out there?" "Someone who knew we'd be here," Hayes said softly, joining them. "Whoever's sending this signal, they know about the alien girl. They'd been tracking her for a long time." "But why her?" Bell asked, still staring at the screen. "What makes her so special?" Carter's mind raced. What had they stumbled upon? What was the connection between the girl and this distant signal? The pieces were beginning to fall into place, but the picture it formed was more unsettling than anything she could have imagined. "I think we've been wrong about the girl," Carter said, her voice trembling with realization. "She's not just a random survivor. She's a messenger." A cold silence settled over the room. "She was sent here to deliver that signal," Carter continued, her words gaining strength as the truth hit her. "But she doesn't know why. She doesn't even understand it. She's been programmed, forced to respond to that signal. And whoever sent it is using her as a tool." "But to what end?" Hayes asked, shaking her head in disbelief. "What could they want with a girl from a distant planet?" Bell grimaced. "Maybe it's not about the girl at all. Maybe she's just the vessel. The message is what's important." Carter felt a wave of nausea. The more she thought about it, the more certain she became that they were dealing with something much bigger than just a first contact scenario. The alien girl was part of a larger plan, one that had been set in motion long before she ever arrived on Terra 9. The girl stirred on the bed, her hand twitching. It was a small movement, almost imperceptible, but enough to make Carter's breath catch. The girl's eyes slowly opened, and this time, there was no fear in them. Only a deep, unsettling emptiness. "Lieutenant, Commander." The alien girl's voice was weak, barely a whisper, but it was the first time she had spoken. "They are coming." Carter's heart skipped a beat. Who's coming?" The alien girl's eyes fluttered, as though she was struggling to keep her focus. "They, the ones who sent me. They control the signal. They will take everything." Carter's blood ran cold. "Who are you talking about? Who are they?" The alien girl's eyes widened in a final, desperate plea, but before she could answer, her body suddenly jerked violently. The power in the room flickered, and the hum of energy returned. This time, stronger than ever. The alien girl's body convulsed as if she was fighting against an invisible force. "It's happening again," Hayes shouted, backing away. "She can't stop it. It's not just her. It's them. They're controlling her again." The girl's body went rigid, and a blinding flash of light filled the room. Carter shielded her eyes, and when the light faded, the alien girl was gone. Her body had vanished, leaving behind only a faint, crackling energy in the air. "We're too late," Bell whispered. "They've taken her." The station's communication systems erupted in static, and then, out of the silence, A voice crackled through the speakers. "You are too late." The voice was cold, calculated, and utterly alien. It sent a shiver down Carter's spine. "We are the Cinder. You have uncovered our vessel. The girl was never meant to be your ally. She was meant to lead you here." The words echoed in Carter's mind, the weight of their meaning sinking in. The truth was finally revealed. The alien girl had been a pawn in a game far larger than they could have imagined, and the game was far from over. "Now, we will take what is ours." The final showdown. The words from the Cinder echoed in the air, chilling and cold. "Now, we will take what is ours." The voice came through the station speakers with such finality that it was as though it were written in stone. Carter stood frozen in the command center, the weight of the revelation pressing down on her chest. The alien girl, once their mysterious and seemingly innocent captive, had been nothing more than a puppet, a tool in a much larger game. But now, the true enemy had revealed itself, and Carter knew the stakes had risen beyond anything they had prepared for. "The Cinder, they've been watching us this whole time," Bell said, his voice strained, as he stared at the now empty medical bay where the girl had once been. "And now, they've taken her. What are they going to do next?" "We don't know," Carter said, her mind racing. "But we can't just sit here and wait for them to make the next move. They've already shown their power. If they can control her, they can control anything." Dr. Hayes, who had been silent for most of the conversation, suddenly spoke up, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. "I don't know how, but I'm sure we can stop them. We need to find a way to fight back before it's too late." Carter's eyes flickered to the communication console. "The signal, the one they sent through the girl. Maybe we can track it. If they're controlling her with that, maybe we can use it against them." Bell looked at her, his expression conflicted. "That's a dangerous idea. If we're wrong, if we disrupt their signal, we could be risking everything. They have control over the station's systems, over the girl. And now they know where we are. We've already walked into their trap." Carter clenched her fists, the resolve in her eyes hardening. "If we don't fight back, we're all dead anyway. We don't have a choice." The crew scrambled to devise a plan, but time was running out. The Cinder signal was pulsing through the station, stronger now, like a beacon calling out into the vastness of space. Carter could feel it. The pull, the pressure. It was as if the station itself was alive, responding to the alien force. She knew they couldn't wait any longer. "Is the signal coming from the alien girl?" Carter asked, as she and Hayes analyzed the station's systems. "No," Hayes replied, her brow furrowing as she read the data on her screen. "It's originating from a point outside the station. But the girl, she was a link, a conduit. We can't track it precisely, but I think it's coming from somewhere nearby. Something closer than we thought." The realization hit Carter like a lightning bolt. The Cinder weren't just controlling the alien girl. They were controlling everything around them. The girl had been their tool, but the Cinder's true power lay beyond her. "They're here, aren't they?" Carter whispered, staring at the data with mounting horror. "I think so," Hayes replied, her voice steady, but filled with dread. "Whatever we're facing, it's bigger than just one ship. The Cinder have advanced technology. This is an entire network they've put in place." Carter took a deep breath. "We need to find the source of that signal. We need to stop them before they take full control of the station." The crew worked together in a mad scramble to track the source of the signal. The station's systems were becoming increasingly unstable, flickering in and out as the Cinder's influence tightened. It felt as though the walls themselves were closing in. With every passing moment, Carter felt the weight of impending disaster pressing on her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the station's sensors picked up an anomaly. An object moving toward them from the far reaches of space, cloaked in a way that made it nearly impossible to detect. It was coming closer, faster than anything they had the capability to intercept. Bell's voice came through the comms, his voice urgent. It's them. They've activated their ship's warp drive. They're here. We're out of time. Carter's stomach dropped. The Sindar weren't just watching. They were preparing to launch an invasion. The ship that had been cloaked was now visible, a massive vessel emerging from the shadows of space, its sleek and terrifying design almost too advanced to comprehend. "We can't stop it," Hayes said, her voice breaking. "Not without shutting down their signal first." Carter nodded grimly. They had one shot, one chance to take back control. They had to disable the Sindar's ability to control the station and the alien girl before the enemy reached them. If they failed, the Argo would fall, and they'd be left helpless in the face of an unstoppable alien force. "We'll need to get to the main communications array," Carter said, her voice steady despite the rising panic. "If we can destroy the Sindar's link to the station, we might have a chance." The crew raced through the narrow corridors of the Argo, their hearts pounding. The ship seemed to groan under the weight of the Sindar's influence. The walls shimmered with a faint, unnatural light, and Carter felt a surge of dread as she made her way to the communications array. As they reached the control room, they saw the flickering remnants of the Sindar's power grid, an invisible force wrapping around the station, holding it in a vice grip. The alien girl's image appeared on the main console, her violet eyes wide and filled with fear. She looked as though she was trapped in the web of the Sindar's control. "This is it," Hayes said, her hands trembling as she worked to access the console. "We need to deactivate their network, disconnect the systems before they can retaliate." Carter moved to the central control panel, and with a deep breath, she punched in the commands to shut down the Sindar's link. Sparks flew as the station's systems flickered once more, and for a moment, everything went dark. Then, silence. The ship stopped trembling. The oppressive feeling in the air lifted. Carter's breath came in ragged gasps, her body tense with anticipation. "Did we do it?" Vel asked, his voice full of hope. "I think we did," Carter said, looking at the now still image of the alien girl on the screen. But as the lights began to flicker back on, Carter's stomach turned in horror. The girl's eyes, once filled with terror, were now blank, lifeless. The light in her gaze had gone out. Before they could react, the communication system crackled to life once more. "You are too late." The Sindar's voice filled the room, cold and final. The alien ship loomed just outside the station, its weapons charging, and there was nothing left to do. The final battle for survival had begun.